Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, we're North Carolina peoples over in Cameron Indoor Stadium. And we're going to meet and talk with a man who is a legend in his own time in the world of basketball and in public service, Coach K. We'll meet and talk with him in just a few seconds.
Production of North Carolina People is made possible by a grant from Wachovia Bank, a symbol of strength, stability, and service for over a century.
Well, for all of us who love the sport, it's wonderful to see you back at it and see you looking so well, and I know you're raring to go.
Raring to go, and I apologize for not being on last year. Right around this time of the year last year, I was getting my back operated on, and you were kind enough to invite me on your show then, and I couldn't do it from my bedroom.
Well, we're glad you're here, Mike, and we look forward to another great season. We're here in the trophy room in this wonderful place. Eddie Cameron, who's a great friend, man we admired so many years, but I know when you walk in here, it must give you tons of wonderful memories all of a sudden.
Well, I think when you walk into a room like this, whether it be at Duke or at any university, even in the university you might be visiting, there's an air of a different air. It's of excellence. You know that the people who are honored in a room like this, the Hall of Fame here at Duke University, they've gone beyond the call of duty. They haven't been ordinary. They've been extraordinary people. And as you walk around here or in any of those rooms, you can kind of lose yourself in the memories of each one of those people, and whether you were playing with them or watching them or picture yourself doing those things. So I like to have our players come in here a few times.
Well, you'll have to pardon me as I wandered around. I was looking at this bust of Coach Wade. I was sitting out there the day they played Pittsburgh, and I saw that great transplanted Rose Bowl game. But 45 years of seeing all these great stars, Art Heyman, Jeff Mullins, Dick Groat, ones that I saw play years ago, and then your generation. These are really wonderful young people. Do you stay in touch with them all, yours? Actually,
we stay in touch with quite a few of them, and about 2 months ago we had an unbelievably unique weekend here. We called it Legends Weekend, and where we brought back a whole bunch of them. In fact, all the retired jerseys, we have 9 retired jerseys, and all of them were here. We had a big dinner, a golf outing. I wouldn't call it a tournament necessarily, but they had a lot of fun, and we had a game. And I found myself just looking around, whether it be at the dinner, at the game, or when I was out on the golf course watching them. If I'd see Mark Allery and Johnny Dawkins together, boom. A spectrum of all type of memories occurred, and they were all good. I think that's the neat thing about bringing people back like that. You don't remember anything bad. You remember all the good things, and that's what makes them good memories.
I noticed in the paper this morning before I came over that your first coach, Bobby Knight, was 55 years old today, Mike. Where was this association? Where did you begin with him?
Well, actually, Coach Knight recruited me to go to the United States Military Academy at West Point when I was a senior. He was an assistant coach at West Point. Then when I got there, Tate's Locke had left, and Coach Knight became the head coach. And I didn't play for him my freshman year. Freshmen weren't eligible, and I ended up being a point guard for him for 3 years and his captain my senior year. And then I was a graduate assistant for him after I put my 5 years of duty in. My service obligation, and at Indiana University. I was going to get my MBA from their business school.
You and I have a mutual friend who you ran into up at West Point, General Walter Ulmer. You remember him fondly and happily?
Very much so. He was the commandant of cadets when I was coaching there, and deadpan humor and a brilliant guy. I think I was always suspect of him, though, because he was a basketball referee in addition to being a general. So that's a very weird combination. I'm sure that Dick Paparo and Lenny Wirtz did not achieve that acclaim in their other aspects of their life. But he's a tremendous leader and a very good friend. I learned a lot from him.
You have to listen carefully to be sure you know exactly what he's up to.
Well, he never, when he gets you going, you really, he puts the hook out there and he gets you really easy.
I want our viewers to know that you were one of a group of coaches that came before the Knight Commission, spent 4 years studying intercollegiate athletics, and you made great contributions, you and Coach Smith and Coach Knight and the others. What do we need to do now that you see out there that would make the sport better or safer or be more protecting of the future of these players, Mike?
I think it's always important to remember what needs to be done today. The visibility of this sport, men's college basketball, has really gone off the charts. And the money that's made from it, the exposure that we get, it brings about a unique set of problems that are not there necessarily for many of the other sports. And so in solving these problems or creating new things to do, it's not just problems, but how to keep abreast of it, things have to be done in more of a timely fashion, which may not be needed in intercollegiate wrestling or soccer or tennis and things like that. And I think that an adjustment needs to be made within our organization, the NCAA, to accommodate that type of demand right now and to just keep up with it, because things change in a fast fashion.
What about our relationships with the secondary schools of the country? Is this the way it was a half a dozen years ago, or is it getting deeper in? Or what problems do you see out there with the high schools?
Yeah, I don't think we have as good a relationships with the high schools as we had even 5-6 years ago. I think some of that has to do with the communication, the limited amount of time coaches can be out, when you can start talking to players, when you start writing to players. I always thought that a high school basketball player would listen more to a college basketball coach than he would maybe anybody else, because that's his thing. That's his passion. And if somebody who's a freshman or a sophomore was very good and maybe wasn't studying as much, I used to get letters from coaches saying, "Would you please write Jimmy and tell him to study, or tell him what he needs to do to maintain his, the standards needed to go to college." Well, we can't do that now. You can't even write a kid a youngster until he starts his junior year in high school. You can't talk to him until July 1 after his junior year has been completed. And I think that lack of communication, it really hurts us and hurts the youngsters.
They should be talking directly and more
Yeah,
often.
a little bit. I mean, you could put limits on it, but even some written correspondence. I mean, just think if, look, Dean Smith and Bob Knight and myself and, say, Lute Olson from Arizona are recruiting the same kid. If he's not doing well in school, all four of us are going to send letters to that kid. You know, if he goes to Arizona, goes to North Carolina, you're still writing him and saying, "Hey, keep up your grades. You know, make sure you're listening to your coach," and things like that. I don't think kids are getting those type of letters because the window of recruiting is so small, so they're getting bombarded with how good they are, how great they are, and here's what we can do for you, and all those type of things. There aren't as many realistic letters as there needs to be, and I think that hurts the kid when he has to listen to people in the high school.
When they make the choice, sometimes I'm sure when some of these high school athletes report to you and your fellow coaches, there's a problem there of his own sense of self-importance. And
Absolutely.
do you really have to retrain them to play basketball sometimes?
Well, some of them, yes, and I wouldn't say, to generalize and say all of them, because a lot of them, the Grand Hills of the world, Hurley, Leitner, those kids, they came from good family settings, good school settings where they learned to respect authority.
Right.
I think that's a key element. When you get youngsters who've already been taught that there's somebody who can teach them, and they should respect them,
right,
whether it's parents, teachers, and all, it's a lot better. Every once in a while, you get youngsters who think they don't have to learn, that they already know it all. And hopefully, in that situation, you have enough other youngsters that peer pressure is placed on them where they don't act like knuckleheads, so to speak.
They can do more teaching sometimes than anybody else.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why you want a lot of good kids in your program. I think sometimes coaches, what we do is really exaggerated. If we get good kids in our program, some of those kids are our best teachers. They're our teaching assistants, so to speak, if we were college professors.
When you get right down to the group you want to go to make the final decision on, what qualities do you look for in athletes? What abilities, capabilities, if you share a secret with us?
Well, I think the first one is obvious. They have to have talent. You know, if they want to, whatever school you represent as a coach, you have to bring somebody in who's going to uphold the standards of academic excellence, and that varies from different schools. But I think those two, can they make it and can they help? But then I look for how they respect authority. Like when we have a home visit, I like to see how they treat their mother or their fathers, if they're fortunate enough to have both, their coach. When a mother talks during our meeting, does the youngster listen or is he interrupting her? When a coach talks to a kid in a game or in the summer camp, is that kid looking at the coach? Is he making all kind of facial expressions? And we like to find out sometimes what teachers say and get teachers' evaluations and find out how he is around the school. If we make a school visit, we'll ask kids around the school, what do you think about Joe? And, oh man, he's a great kid. Or, oh man, he doesn't treat people right. You know, and just we get an accumulation of information like that, and so we find out if they're good characters.
Self-discipline has a lot to do with your judgment of a player, I could judge, watching what you do.
Yeah, self-discipline and the ability maybe to want to be more disciplined. You know, as you gain greater talents, as you improve as a player, sometimes people think that they don't have to be disciplined. On the contrary, as you gain a greater appreciation for your talents, so you find out that you're doing even better, the ability to have discipline is a cornerstone for success. I think two of the most heralded players in this area ever have been Michael Jordan and Grant Hill. Of course, I had an opportunity to work with Grant more than Michael, but I did work with Michael in the '92 Olympics and a little bit in the '84 Olympics. Those two youngsters were magnificent pupils. They were incredibly disciplined and were always looking to get better. I can remember Jordan before an Argentina game in the '92 Olympics, and we're going to beat them by 30 in the qualifying round. And he's guarding this one person, and he asked before the game, Coach, let me just watch that guy on tape, and what does he do? And the kids today in a scouting report might say, man, I don't have to listen to that. And here's Jordan, you know, before we're playing Argentina, he's going to beat that guy, but he wanted to look his best all the time, and he knew that people could help him look better. You know, it's that time. Grant Hill was the same way.
Well, that's why they're as good as they are.
Absolutely.
When do you know that the team chemistry has really come together? How does a coach, do you do it by instinct or feel? You see 5, 6 players that you know work so well together that it's a unit now.
Yeah, I think it's mostly by feel. You instinctively know that you just kind of start feeling things. It's kind of like a good cook when you're, like my mom, she makes that soup or stew or whatever, and she thinks, it's just not right, and then you taste it. Now this is right. Now the thing about that is that to assume then, when you feel you have good chemistry, that it's going to stay good, that's not a real good assumption. If you do get it, you got to work real hard to keep it, because most units do not have it.
Well, I noticed your NCAA championship unit. I bet they came out on the floor and worked when you didn't tell them to, just to perfect that relationship.
Well, they perfected it. I mean, that's a very good insight. Those two teams that won back-to-back championships, they spent a lot of time together in the locker room by themselves, at training table, or doing things together, where they really created an appreciation for one another. They made each other better. I mean, that's one of the neat things about being a part of a team. It's the best way to improve. Is if I get together with all these people, and we're all good, we're going to make each other better instead of trying to do it alone. And I think that's really a secret to success.
It's an unfair question, but throughout your career, what have been great thrills for you as you've experienced as a coach and as a player, as a matter of fact, Can you name one or two or three that really stand out in your memory?
I think the most special feelings I've had is watching the players that I've coached when they've had their jerseys retired. I look at that as the single highest honor an athlete can get from be bestowed upon by his school, and to know that I had something to do with that and that development. In fact, I get chills right now because I'm just picturing, Ferry and Leitner and Dawkins and Hurley and Hill.
9 of them in here.
Yeah, and then on a coaching perspective, I think the 2 games that stand out are a win over Vegas in the semifinals, which led to a win over Kansas for the first national championship, and the win over Kentucky, which gave us a chance to win our second one.
I remember that Kentucky game. What a ball game that was.
It was pretty good.
Well, we're doing this on the 17th of November, and the season starts. You've already played your first game by then. Same old ACC that you see down the road this year, as competitive as ever?
Yeah, I think it's probably more competitive this year from top to bottom. Certainly with a Tim Duncan, you have maybe the best player in college basketball, and that might give Wake somewhat of an advantage. Maryland has a lot of veterans back, but it's one of those years where anybody can beat anybody. I just hope we can win our share of games. We're going to be a young team, and we're going to start out strong because we go up to Alaska, and then we have Illinois and Michigan early, and we're hoping that our team will develop as a result of the tough competition.
You find that immediately launching into that level of competition does something for the melding of a team?
Well, I think it scares you, first of all. And a lot of people avoid fear. And, I'll tell you what, I went to 7 Final Fours as a coach. Every time I walk on the court, I'm a little bit afraid. But I think it motivates you to come together more, and we may lose, we may win, but I think we'll get better as a result of putting ourselves in a little bit tougher crucible to figure out who we're going to be.
I read in one of the interviews with you that's been written in the recent weeks that looking ahead now, there'll be more time for the family, and but one thing I've noticed about you that you really are willing to share of yourself in a lot of public service work, Mike. You have a great interest in children. I'm sure you're going to continue this because it's born in you, I believe.
Well, I love children, and we were all children,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a common thing about all human beings, is that we all are children at one point, and I think sometimes we forget that we were. And by being around players, I feel I have more of a youthful perspective on things. And by helping out with the Duke Children's Hospital especially, you get more of a perspective on youngsters, especially youngsters who are in greater battles than you could ever be in. And I think that has helped me keep things in perspective. And also it's helped me not to fear failure and to put a basketball game in its proper place, instead of putting it way out here, understanding that it has a place that maybe isn't as important as some things.
How do you deal with fans like me who get so wrought up about this? You have to calm us down every once in a while, don't you, alumni?
Yeah, well, I'm happy about people who get involved and when they express themselves. I think, though, it's like if I had a question of administration and in college, throughout the university system, I would listen to you, because of your experience. And I would just hope that at least the Duke fans, that even though they get so emotional about things, would actually listen to someone who does it all the time. That doesn't mean we don't make mistakes, but we're the ones who have to make the decisions.
Well, I've noticed that the times you've done it, that they listen very carefully. Well, now, before we started, I learned that there's a big new addition going up out here next to Cameron Indoor Stadium. What's going to happen there?
Well, actually, it's part of a 3-part addition to Duke. recreational facilities at Duke leave something to be desired. Let's put it that way. That's being very, very kind. And there's really over a $30 million project that's been started where our East Campus, like 5-point-something million recreational center would be built. On West, $20 million recreational facility. And then Cameron Annex. We're not going to change the configuration of Cameron Indoor Stadium, but we're going to attach a building to Cameron. And in it will be a new academic support system, new Hall of Fame. There'll be maybe more stuff about Coach Wade and Coach Cameron. New basketball offices for men's and women's basketball, locker rooms, and it will create more space in Cameron, because when this place was built in '39, Duke didn't have 24, 25 sports. And now we have all those sports, and these other people need room to expand. So we're hoping that it'll help everybody.
As you look ahead now for the sport, say the next 5 to 10 years, what do you expect to change? What will be the relationship with the NBA, if any? What about television? What's going to happen to all these forces as you see it?
Well, it's kind of hard to predict, because 10 years ago, I'm not sure people could predict that it would explode the way it has been. I would hope that that we keep some control of the sport, and there's some things that only players and coaches should be doing. It doesn't have to be shared with everyone. I don't think you should have necessarily open access to everyone. There's intimate situations that need to be there. It doesn't have to be exposed. I would hope that the powers to be do not let TV control everything that's going on, although I know the money has to be there to fund other sports.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think we're letting it manipulate too much sometimes.
Yeah, we got to be careful about that. And I think overall, if we just look at it always, that just like universities, the game of basketball is for the students. And you were president, and I'm coach. We wouldn't be in those positions unless there were kids going to our school and kids being on our team. And if we can always try to create an environment that's conducive to the development and the happiness of the people who are participating, then we will continue to make good decisions about the future of the sport. And if we start making them for other reasons, then we lose sight of really what our purpose is.
Well, we have to discipline this, don't we? Because money gets to be a problem if it goes uncontrolled, and too many overemphasis in other sports can occur too.
And absolutely, and then we set the example as other sports begin to explode. I mean, I think it would be ludicrous for us to think that, for the rest of time, that only basketball is going to be the hot sport, or basketball and football. There are other things that are out there, and people's interests change. And 20 years down the road, 3 or 4 other sports may be really hot. And what example are we setting for those sports? And I think as they look, especially to basketball, we should provide a good example, and not an example which will lead to problems as they develop.
I know anyone who had the chance I've got to ask you these questions would want to know. I want you to tell us, how's Bobby Hurley?
Bobby's doing absolutely great. In the preseason, he started for the Sacramento Kings, and I expect him to continue to start. He's, I think, finally overcome that unbelievable accident. I think last year, although he came back, his body was still had to be going through trauma. It has not overcome the trauma of that accident. And I think it plays on you not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. And I think now he's much better. He has a much better chance of success. He's very hard on himself, and he wants to be back right away. But yeah, he's become like a folk hero, and I love him, and I love his fighting spirit.
Well, I always had the feeling he was very attached to you, in the sense that he thought he could learn something every game he played if he'd just listened, and you were a great teacher for him. Was this the relationship you had?
You mentioned a key word, that has to be there in a teacher-pupil relationship, and that's listen. But that goes both ways. I think if you're a leader, if you're a teacher, you have to remember that the communication process is one of not just you talking, but you listening. And so, although Bobby didn't say much, I did get him to talk a little bit. And when you hear what he has to say, you have a much better chance of responding to that instead of doing the thinking for him. And I loved coaching him and identified with him a little bit because of his background and my background. And
That was perfectly clear, but
yeah.
we've used up all of our time, Coach K.
Well, it's gone by too fast.
It's great to see you and great to have you back on the firing line. We look forward to another great season.
Well, thank you very much.
Grand to see you.
Production of North Carolina People is made possible by a grant from Wachovia Bank, a symbol of strength, stability, and service for over a century.